Hi everyone, welcome to our Claris FileMaker training course on how to build a custom CRM in 30 days. This training is designed primarily for beginners or those of you who need kind of a refresher with the Claris FileMaker platform. Over the course of 30 days, we're going to spend about an hour each day covering topics from the very basics of the Claris FileMaker platform in terms of the tools, the products, deployment, security, all those things you need to know about as you build a custom application. So keep in mind that towards the beginning of the training, the topics are more basic in nature. And as we get towards the end of the training, they're somewhat more advanced. I would say probably intermediate level topics. Now keep in mind this special part of this training is that while we're not only talking about the FileMaker platform, we're talking how you can rapidly customize an existing free CRM that you can download today. It's unlocked. So taking that CRM and customizing it to your organization's particular needs. Now, a couple important links to keep in mind. One is that if you need a copy of FM Starting Point, the free Unlock CRM, visit fmstartingpoint.com and press the button. And then our system will shoot you an email with the current links to that CRM. If you're looking for additional FileMaker training, visit fmtraining.tv and press the bundles button. And that will allow you to get more of this highly animated and somewhat energetic training material to help you through the learning process with the Claris FileMaker platform. Lastly, if you have questions about the FileMaker platform or you're looking for some additional help, maybe some one-on-one coaching help, feel free to email us at support@rcconsulting.com. Today, talking about multi-file solutions and if you want to have them and why you should have them and maybe why you don't want to have them. Today begins the last 3 days of our live stream training. Today's topic is obviously multi-file solutions or single file solutions, I guess we could talk about. Here's the deal with multi-file solutions. So I'm gonna scroll down here to the history lesson right here in blue. For those of you who weren't around 30 years ago, back around 2000, right around that time frame, 2001, 2002, whenever that was in there, Claris shipped FileMaker 7, the version 7 of the platform. People say, well, they shipped FileMaker Pro 7. Well, they also shipped FileMaker Server 7 and FileMaker Pro Advanced 7. So I don't really talk about this Pro. I don't put the word Pro in there because it was a platform version ship, right? And so they shipped version 7 around 2000, 2001, or somewhere in there. And so all the solutions prior to that, each table had to be in its own file. So if you had like Starting Point, if we had built Starting Point at that time, like we go into Starting Point, you go into File, Manage, Database, and you go to Tables, each one of these would have been a table. Or correction, it was a table already, but it would have been its own file. So a file, like when you go into Manage Databases, there's this table option up here. Prior to FileMaker 7, this little table didn't exist. So when you went into the file, into the field definitions, it dropped you onto the one table attached to the file, right? So starting with 7, they added this so you could put multiple tables in a file. So this would be a 20 some odd 19 table solution. This copy of Starting Point would be 19 files. So so the solution would be a folder that says Starting Points would be a folder. It'd be FM Starting Point, and you would open up this folder, and there would be 22 or 23, whatever, 19 files that are in here, and they're all cross-connected and cross-related. What made it suck, and I mean suck with a giant S, like a big giant sucky thing, right, was that you had to do the security setup on each of the files. There were really two things about it. One is importing data across from one file to the next was a real okay. Doing the security setup 19 times was a so doing that was a pain in the so after that, when we build solutions, we would generally try to build them in a single file. So you have this kind of opposite ends of the spectrum. Put everything in one file. What's the good parts and bad parts of that? Put everything in its own file. What's the good parts and bad parts of that? Maybe there's a happy medium in the middle somewhere. So that's part of this conversation. So single file solutions are easier to manage from a security standpoint. They're easier to update, especially with the data migration tool, which is a tool. We could actually cover that a little bit tomorrow, although I haven't done it lately, so probably better I'm going to refer to that, the training. Someone asked the other day about, hey, where's the metadata magic training. If you go into our video training and I go to the pro, might be in the deploy course. Let's try the deploy course. I'm going to say the data DMT, the data migration tool. So data migration tool, migrating data to a new copy of FMSP using the FM data migration. So here we go. In the platform course, for those of you who paid for our training, these videos right here walk you through using the data migration tool to rapidly move the data from one copy of the file, one copy of your file, to a newer copy of the file or a somewhat altered copy of the file. And so it doesn't move the data from totally dissimilar files. The idea is if you were working on a copy of starting point, using it, you make some modifications to an offline copy, you test those modifications, you like the modifications, you run through this process, and it takes the data from all the tables on one pass, You take all the data out of the file of all the tables and it pushes it into the matching data and tables in the destination file. So you have a source file, a destination file. It does it in seconds. Literally, I've never seen it take more than 90 to 120 seconds, something that would take a day or 2 days to do by scripts. So this is the data migration tool. It's part of the paid video training. If you don't have our paid video training, you can't have this. I'm sorry. This is why people have access to this training. I can't really cover. This is about 2 or 3 hours of training, 4 hours of training. Someone wanted me to cover it in the beginning live stream. It's not really a beginning topic. It's not insanely complex, I would say. If you're past beginner, kind of more to the intermediate stage where you're trying to figure out how to move data from one copy of FileMaker to another copy of FileMaker, it's really a great tool for that. Claris came out with that in FileMaker 17, and it makes migrating from one file to another file easy. If you have a single file and you're migrating to another single file, you make one pass on this. It's so simple. It's really great. So that is the data migration tool. If you actually pop open to, if I say Claris, used to be FileMaker, Claris data migration tool guide. Here we go. It's a help document. Here's the help document. Use the Claris command line tool to migrate all the data, blah, 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 blah. It is kind of in its native state a command line tool. There are third-party wrappers apps for this thing. We call it a wrapper app that you wrap their, make an interface for it. Productive Computing created one. A couple companies created one. Even Klaus Levint at Data Manix created one. He's a funny guy. So he was on here not too long ago. So the idea is you have a source file, and you have a source file, then you have the destination file, which is a clone. Okay, I'm not going to get into the mechanics of this. I simply say that it's bad and it really works, but it won't. Listen to my words. Read my lips. It will not move the data from one file to a dissimilar FileMaker file. So the source and the destination should have a similar heritage. One came from the other, and then there were modifications. Maybe a new table was added. Maybe a table was renamed. Maybe fields were added. Fields were renamed. Fields were deleted. Whatever. Layouts were added. Layouts were removed. But they fundamentally kind of have this similar kind of history, right? Because what it does, it starts looking at things, figuring out how things match up and line up. And we cover that in our training video. But I just suffice to say that it's not for migrating from a CRM to someone's fulfillment system in a warehouse. If you want to do that, you need to use an import, export, script steps, etc. Do it the old-fashioned way, right? This is something that works in seconds. It uses all the processors on your computer in parallel. It's crazy awesome. It's one of those moments where I first played with this, I was blown away by how great it was. It was really great. It solves so many problems. So there are a couple products out there that take this and extend it. The data migration tools, this command line thing, there are also a couple paid products that make it better. One of which is called 360works Deploy, which I will personally vouch for. It's a good product. And then which allows you to kind of use their interface. You have a new file, and you say, hey, here's my new file. Just magically handle it for me. And it talks to the server. It uploads the file. The server takes the other file, takes it offline, moves the data across, right, on the server, I guess, and then post a new file up. It's pretty awesome. So the data migration tool made the issue of migrating from one version of FileMaker to a much easier new version a much easier conversation. It uses a command line. It's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. If you're doing a lot of these migrations, say that you are Ed Burkle and he's making a solution for fire inspection, blah, blah, blah stuff. And but he does it for himself. He does it for like 12 different departments around the country, and they're all using the same version. He could come out with a new version, put it up into automatic or 360works deploy, press a button, and it would post it out to all the servers for him automatically, and everyone would get a new version. And if there's a problem, it automatically rolls, at least the deploy one will automatically roll backwards, so you don't leave yourself in a bad state, right? So if something malfunctions, if it blows up, it carefully walks itself backwards and then restores what was running previously, which is kind of great. But yeah, so the FileMaker has been upgrading the data migration tool for 5 years, 4, 5, 6 years, and there is a new version now. It's free now. I had a link to this somewhere. So the data migration tool has been updated. This is the update history. They came up with a version for 19.5.1. They fixed some things and always adding a couple little features to it. Largely, it is unchanged from the version 17 release. It's not radically strategically different. It has a couple other little niceties, because what happens is as you migrate from file 1 to file 2, for example, what do you do with the security, right? Because you had security credentials in the old file. Do those security credentials move into the new file? What happens with that? What about other little things that should they really come forward and be copied forward? There's little every time they have a new version here, there's new little switches that you can push and turn on or off. What kind of upgrade does it do? Move the security stuff over, move the value list over, move things like that over. So yeah, so it's quite a bit to this. It's a really great tool. So back to the multi-file solution. So originally we had multi-file solutions because we had to. Gun to our head, we had to do it that way. It was not a lot of other way. Starting in 2000, 2001, they changed it. People who rebuilt their solutions built them generally as a single file. What you will run into sometimes is you will actually be asked to work on a database that you didn't create, and it will be a bunch of files. If you see a bunch of files in a folder, like FMP12 files, like 5 or 10 or 20 or more, that's a clue that file originated prior to 2000. It doesn't mean it's old and out of date. It just means that it was originally created and structured prior to the turn of the century. So, whereas like Starting Point and stuff like that came out in 2008, it was after this kind of conversion to the single file format. But I had an internal system called Business Commander, which was a predecessor even to FM Starting Point, and it was a multi-file solution. And we spent quite a bit of money to it's called consolidate. You consolidate all these different files into a single file. So you have to copy the table, paste the tables in, then copy the layouts. You guys went through this the other day with Michael when you went through the checklist of how to duplicate a PO module, for example. There was a checklist for that. Well, that's kind of what you would do loosely in consolidating a multi-file solution into a single file solution. So, where does it making multiple, this came up from Lonnie, and it was some good questions about it. Where does having separate FMP12 files make sense? 2 different departments at a company. So say we're working at Chevron. Chevron used to use FileMaker. I don't know if they still use it or not, the oil company. Okay, so we're in 2 different departments. The 2 different departments need to share some data. The 2 different departments are run by different groups with even different developers, but they need to share data. They would have a separate, at minimum, a separate single file solution for each group, if that makes sense. You have 2 different departments with the same developer. Maybe the files are together in one solution. If their jobs are very, very similar and the jobs that they do are very similar between the departments, then maybe just one file, one single solution for both groups is useful, and maybe have a different layout to support the different groups. But if the groups really have a different mission, if they have different budgets, they have different staff, and they maybe even hate each other, right? Or don't like each other, or they begrudgingly, I don't mean like friendly hate each other, like the Navy and the Air Force or something, right? Or the Navy, yeah. I mean, you get that idea, right? Like where they give each other a hard time, but they actually kind of get along, really, at the end of the day. But you have actually groups within organizations which would slit each other's throats. And some of you know what I'm talking about. Those groups should definitely be on their own file. And then you can decide how and what data they share. Now, here's the other part of this. If you have two files that are connected together, this is an essential thing. It's actually not in here. I should mention this in this PDF. If you have two files, so let's go through the mechanism here of doing this, right? Lonnie mentioned sharing data files. There's no such thing really as a data file in FileMaker versus a structural file. FileMaker sticks structure and data together in the same FileMaker file. So let's say, for example, we have a copy of FM starting point right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to establish that this file right here is for one department, for example, and this is file for another department. So this is, we're going to call this, before we get too involved, this is the, we'll call it the sales. Actually, let's call this warehouse fulfillment. So if you order something from Amazon, right? Like we could actually call it like that. Let's just call it that way. Amazon warehouse fulfillment. Now, Amazon would never use FileMaker. They're so big, they probably built their own database system, okay? I doubt it's even Oracle. It's beyond that. It's like huge. But conceptually, this very much is applicable here because I have a lot of customers who have a front end of the business and a back end of the business. So let's just call this the Amazon CRM, whatever. So as people place orders, they're going to go in here. And then as the orders are completed, they would go to fulfillment over here, right? So what we do is we're going to open up this file right here. There's your CRM, the Amazon CRM. Over here is the warehouse of fulfillment solution, okay? I'm going to go over here. I'm going to go to this table. I'm going to put in a orders table. I'm going to create an orders table, and I'm going to come over here to fields, and I'm going to, it already has a primary key, which is kind of great. I hate calling it primary key. I'll call it ID orders, which is much better. And then they always turn all these validation options, which guaranteed is going to cause all sorts of hell to happen in a bad situation. So once again, unless you like endless warning dialogues popping up because someone does something a little bit squirrely, I'm just going to have it create an order and then number one, and it'll increment behind that, if that makes any sense. So on creation, that's great. We say okay. And then we could have the, let's just call it fulfillment information, fulfillment info. So here is a very important concept. Both of these files right here, okay, I want to be in this warehouse fulfillment file. I am the guy running around, guy, gal, robot these days, running around the warehouse doing a pick list. A pick list is a list of things you have to pick off the warehouse shelves. You put it in a little cart. The robots are starting to do this, right? You run around, you run it up to the front. It goes in the box, probably goes to someone else who cross-checks it to make sure there's a QA process on there. And then they slap some bubble packing, wrapping, whatever inside the box. They seal it up. They put the shipping label, out it goes, right? So it's a 2 or 3 step process, highly automated at Amazon, right? So let's say that we're on the order screen over here, different table, right? I'm going to create a new record. I have fulfillment info. I also want to see my primary key right here. What I want to do is I want to see order, ID orders right here. So I see ID order, okay? And also what I want to do is specify a primary key for the invoice, ID Amazon invoice. I would say Amazon customer invoice. I'm being excessively redundant here. Now this is going to be a foreign key. So I'm going to, just to help me, I'm going to say a little squiggly character down there at the bottom. I hit the option key on the Mac and hit F. It gives me kind of this F that's kind of funky. But that tells me it's a foreign key. So I'm going to say create. I'm going to say relationship. So now I've got this table over here, which I really don't care about. I have my orders table right here, and I need to see the data from the other file. So what do we do? We're going to, you can do it from 2 different ways, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to just simply dismiss that dialog. I'm going to close the extra inspector. I'm going to say file, manage, and then you want external data source. So one FileMaker file taking data out of another FileMaker file is an external data source. Okay, it's also where you would tie in potentially other data systems like SQL systems and things like that. I'll say create new. I'll call it Amazon CRM. That name is whatever we want to be, Blue Bunny Rabbit 5, it doesn't matter. Over here is the actual file. You could put some sort of path name, slash this, slash that, slash whatever, if you knew what it was. If you don't know the path out of the top of your head, you can just have the computer write the path for you. You say, you go to the file, and we're going to find the Amazon CRM. I'm going to say open. So it says file. So what this is telling it is that these two files are in the same directory. They're together. They could also be on the same server together, okay? If it was on a different server, you'd put like the server address on here, right? And down here are some samples, et cetera, like that. So I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to say Amazon CRM. I say okay. So it's set up. So now this file is aware of the other file. Okay, very important. If I go file, I go manage database, and I'm on this relationship diagram. I'm on an order screen here. I need to put the table over from the CRM so I can get some of the data out of that order, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, give me a table occurrence over here. It's going to drop a new one on. It says, hey, get out of the current file or get it out of the external data source, okay? And so now it's going through that relational connection we've got, and I'm going to say go to the invoices, okay? And I'm just going to connect it to invoices right now. This is very junior league stuff, but this is kind of structurally, I'm teaching you what you kind of need to know. So we should have an ID invoice over here, right? Somewhere it would be an ID invoice. So there's ID invoice, and then we'd have the Amazon invoice right here. So, right? So you've got it over here. It's going to come over here. We say, okay, right? And so what we would do in your system is you would come up with a way of automatically inputting, having it populate over here, whatever, it doesn't particularly matter. You're going to need to put the invoice number from the other system. So I go over to invoices over here. Is there even an invoice in here? No, that's an old system there. That's a different, that's finished goods. Hang on, let me see here. Amazon CRM, there we go. This is there we go, invoice, here we go. So there's no invoices on here. I'm going to create a new record. It should have a primary key somewhere. I don't see it. Where's the primary? Oh, right up there. That's the primary key. It's hiding it. That sucks. All right, so then we'll say bill to Fred Smith, and and you could have a description, note for printed record. This is what we sold. Okay, Fred Smith. And so you come over here, and you say, well, I want the invoice number 002. Okay, that's great. Now, there's a relationship that's now active, but you can't see it because we haven't brought any data over. So what I want to do is I could say fulfillment info, and that would maybe local data, but then I'd want a box or something. And it would probably be just like one fulfillment for the one invoice. It would be at this point a one-to-one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring another field over here, but I'm going to say, bring me the field out of the related invoices. I think this is field name. There we go. Bill to name. How about full? Can I do that? Let's try that. Let's see if this works. I have no idea if this is going to work. There it goes. So we have established relationships. So I've done the basics here of connecting two files. Here's the considerations. One is that if you open one of these files, there's a really good chance it's going to open the other file. If I open this file here doesn't look at any data on the fulfillment side. It probably should. So someone over here could say, oh, thank you for your call, as if you could call Amazon. You can't call them, but just pretend you could call Amazon or get an email. And they would look up your order and see what the status was. Yes, your order shipped out 2 days ago. We're sorry for the inconvenience. So you need a relationship so you could see what happened with fulfillment. If you're over here, obviously we could bring down the order information. This tells us what to put in the box, right? If this file opens over here on the right, I'm pointing. You can't see me pointing on the screen. Okay, help me out. This file right here, that file. If that file opens, it's going to pop this file open implicitly. Implicit opening. We're never talking about explicit openings and implicit openings, but for example, I'm going to close this file and close this file, go to FileMaker. There are no files open. I'm going to open this file. Okay, you look over here, you see what's open. You see only one file here, show windows. This should be listed as other files that are open in a hidden state, right? An implicit, they're not explicitly open, but they're open, implied opening because FileMaker needed something out of that file. So I'm going to close this file. Nothing's open. I'm going to open this file. What happens? Okay. I'm over here. I say, oh, it opened that file. I come up here to the implicit. It's opened this file. So both files have to be open, which means both of them have to be accessible, which means both of them probably need to be on the server. Running both these on my local computer like this, that's never going to happen. You're always going to have this on a FileMaker server. They can be on different servers. They can even be on servers separated around the world, totally different locations, as long as they are accessible. If you can't, if I close this file and this file is not available anymore, right? I changed the name here, so now it can't find it. I open this file right here. It's going to say, hey, don't know how to open this file and I need this file, right? So now it opens it up and now you get all these error messages. File missing. Separate files is okay as long as they always can talk to each other. If these files are guaranteed not to be accessible to each other, then what you have to do is not establish that data connection between the two, okay, right? See, it's all pissed off now. It's completely lost its mind. Now it's mad. So what you're going to do is, instead of being over here and having the file manage external data sources, you're going to delete this. Delete it, okay? Then you're going to have a script over here that will, when you press the button, it's going to attempt to open this file only when we command it to. It's going to go over here. It's going to do an export of the data into a text file or something like that. Then you're going to tell it to import the data. So it's not a live persistent connection. What we call a persistent is a term in the business, persistent connection. It will be a on-demand connection or a non-persistent connection, right? And so if you know that the other file is available, you press the button. If you press the button and it can't find the file, you do error capture in there, say, sorry, this file is not currently available. You don't throw this cryptic, like if your users see that cryptic crap, Amazon not available, FMP12 file, fatal error, okay? That's bad customer UI, okay? So what you want to say is, we're sorry, this file is not available. Please check your internet connection and try again later, or try again later, right? Question, Ruben says, is there a way to save the credentials of the other file when have different credentials? So the credentials, so let's not talk about Active Directory and that kind of stuff. Let's just assume basic FileMaker credential. We talked about security. Great question, Ruben. If I open, so let's go into this file and set up a basic security, okay? So we'll say, here's your admin file. We're going to edit it. I'm going to say admin and admin, right? Let's just do it that way. Really stupid, okay? Admin, admin. Okay, so okay. I'm going to verify admin and admin, okay? So I close this file. I open this file. I'm going to go back. I have to go back and reestablish my, just give me a second here. I got to put us back to where we were before. I kind of got rid of it. Okay. Once again, when you're setting up an external data source, there's no relationship in there, right? Am I on the wrong file? No, I'm in the right file. There it is. Took it a second. Okay, I put that there. I put that there. I say, okay. That still broke. Let me just fix that real quick. Manage database. This is broke. So remember we disconnected or broke it? I brought the data connection back, but it didn't restore it. It's like blowing up the bridge. It didn't unwind the damage. So I got to double click it, reattach it to this. Security code. Now you have to put the security code. And this is Mac and Windows, it's not a Mac only, you can save the security code here. If you don't, it's going to ask for it every time. And then I'm going to go down here to invoices, wherever it is, not in alphabetical order. I say, okay. Yeah, that looks correct. So it managed to put that back together. So, okay. I'm going to go back to, that's correct. Nope, I'm going to hit cancel. So now it's back to life. Browse mode, there it is. Okay, now I close the file. Okay, now let's watch this again. I open this file. It says, I open the file, but this file needs credentials to open this file over here. So you don't have to have admin credentials. You have to have at least credentials to read the data. So I put admin, okay. Now, this file is open. We explicitly opened this file. This file here is implicitly opened, okay, which means it was opened by implication. You didn't ask for it, but a script needed it or a relationship needed it, so it opens it, implies it. If I close this file over here, what happens? FileMaker goes, well, you close that one, and that one should never really been open, kind of, because you didn't ask for it. So since you're getting rid of it, I'll go ahead and close it for you, right? So because is dependent upon that. David Angel, you misinterpreted what happened. If this file, so let's go through this again. So I open this file, and this time I'm going to say admin. If I check it, it would automatically open it. It works. Okay, now I'm going to close this. I'm going to change the name over here and make the file not available. Okay, this server is down. Okay, I open this file. It says the file is not available. Okay, where should I find it? I can say cancel. This is broke right now. If I go to field definitions, it's broke right now. If I close this file, right, I fix this issue, reopen it, it comes back to life. Okay. It's all fixed. What happened is I broke it because I went in here and I deleted the external data reference. So everything that was dependent upon this is the bridge. So it's a temporary bridge. It establishes the bridge. I deleted the bridge. If you come in here and delete this bridge, then everything downhill of the bridge breaks. That makes all the dependencies of the bridge break, okay? In this case, I didn't delete the bridge. It's just that it couldn't find the file. So if you close it and reopen it, it tries again, right? And this time it finds it, so everything turns back on. Make sense? So good question. I'm going a little bit too fast, but I'm glad you asked that question. Do we have other questions from anyone?
We kind of had Lonnie kind of explaining what his situation was specifically. Lonnie said, to recap, I'm working with a partner who uses his part of the app to do one function, and my portion performs something different, but uses two of the same tables. Sharing these common tables but keeping the FM file separate seems to be a good solution.
So the idea is that you have a single developer working for two different groups. The two different groups need to share some data, but they fundamentally have different missions, and maybe they don't even like each other, right? Separate files. Developer builds a solution for his team, another outside developer needs access to the file. There are times where you really want this separated, okay? Now keep in mind, if you enter credentials here, I did want to show this to you real quick. So this dependency is working. I'm going to say file. I'm going to say, so actually, let me go through it one more time. I double click it. It says, give me not the credentials for this file, give me the credentials over here. Admin. Again, I'm not going to save them. Close it. Okay, I'm going to go into, I should have done that already. Admin. I want to go into this file and add credentials over here. So I'm going to say manage, security. I'm going to go to admin over here, or I could say create an account called Fred. And Fred will use the data entry only password, and so we'll just call Fred. It'll be Fred and Fred over here. So we got Fred on one side and admin, no password on the side. Let's just make this one admin. We'll make this one admin as well. Okay, that's a good example. So if you put the credentials in one file, and then it implicitly opens another file, it's going to pass the credentials you already gave to it, because it figures that you gave it to it once, you're authorized at least for those credentials. So if I close this file, I double click it, I open it. If I put admin, so it's asking for credentials on this file now. If I put admin, it should, when this file says, hey, I want credentials, it's going to say, well, this guy or this guy or gal already used these credentials. So why don't you just try these for fun, see what happens, right? And it tries them, and it works because the file now is open. So I'm going to close the file. I'm going to try Fred. So I'm going to go with Fred and Fred. Reminder that the account name is not case sensitive. The password is case sensitive. So I put the one password in, and so what are the couple things we noticed? Now it's asking for us the password over here. So now we got to put a password for each file. God, such a pain. Right? So this is where, imagine that you have 23 files in your solution because that's the way we used to do it back in 1995, right? And you have to change the password. Someone has to open the 23 files and you have to copy and paste the password in each and every one. Horrible. So we asked for this password, we put it in. It didn't say anything. That's the part that I dislike this. Look at this experience. So just pretend we're really in a hurry. We type really fast. We're going to open our solution. It throws up a dialog. So all I see, let me just hop over here. So all I see up here is I see, because I'm in a hurry, because I'm busy, I'm a busy person, account name and password. I assume it's the account name and password for the file I just tried to open, okay? If you read above, that is the case. So then I go Fred and Fred, okay? And I say, sign in. And I go, damn it, it didn't work, right? Because I got it again, right? How many times do you enter a username and password and it doesn't work, right? So what ends up happening is a situation where it authenticated properly. It didn't give us any feedback, authenticated properly. Now it's asking for a password for a different file. This is why multi-file security can get out of hand real quick and it's confusing to users. Unless you have a user that reads it really carefully. What is that? Oh, that's a different CRM file. Oh, well, what are people going to do when you give them this 20 times? Not good, right? It's just not very savory.
We got a quick question from Tim Bulwark on Zoom, and also we got one from Urban, but I'll do Tim's first. Do you ever use in FileMaker the software concept called MVC, Model View Controller, that wants to separate the parts to make changes and enhancements easier in the future?
It's data separation. Claris doesn't like it because it basically what happens in the world of FileMaker was we get some renegade rejects like Ruben, who come from Oracle or some other place, and they see the benefits of FileMaker, or you take like Dymock, who knows SQL, and they come to FileMaker. And it's really good that you have pre-existing experience, but not all the things you learn in other systems are good or applicable in FileMaker. And so what happens with this PDF document that I'm going to go back and pop open again. Data separation is where you put the and what did he call it? He called it a different name. He called it even a fancier
Model
name.
View Controller, MVC.
Yeah, basically it's the idea, I think, of you put the interface elements in one file and you put the data elements in another file. The reason people will do this sometimes is because they come from these other data systems where, like in some data systems, I don't even know which ones they are, what versions they are, the structure of the FileMaker or the structure of the database file is in one file, like file on your computer. Like imagine this file over here is, so say like, if this was some other data system, right? I'm just going to drag this over here. We'll call this FMSP UI, and then you'd have another file. Once again, I'm just doing this for visualization purposes, FMSP data. And so this contains the layouts, the relational design, the structure, the scripts, the code. This only contains the tables, fields, and data. Tables, fields, and data. So you build a solution. What happens is that you end up with a two-file solution. And the idea, and this goes back to FileMaker sucking in performance over the internet back starting in 96. And that's been, and it was just, and it's gotten faster and faster and faster, including in the latest releases. The sorts and the summaries are server side, so it's continuing to go faster and faster. But the idea is that you have a solution, and this file right here is probably 10 gigabytes or 20 gigabytes or 30 gigabytes, and this is a couple megabytes or 10 megabytes or something small, because the bulk is the millions of records you have, and this is your front-end code, okay? The rub is when you've got two files, so there's double the security work for it as a general rule, okay? Is it the end of the world? No. So the idea is that if you have to update this to the server, remember this is all before, all this idea came out before the data migration tool. Remember the command line tool, I could pop a video and show it to you, but it moves all the data from one file to another file, right? And so normally in the world of FileMaker, this is the one demo over here. Let's put that up there. Normally we're saying I'm promoting, and Claris would say, and they use this, the engineers that use it, internally use a single file. So the interface and data is in one place. You do everything once. If you have to migrate from a new file to an old file, you would migrate. So this is the file, like the A file. This is the old file. And this is the new file right here for visualization purposes. This is the new file right here. And the data migration tool, within about 20 seconds, it sucks the data out of here and loads it in the new file here. Wham. But that's only as of FileMaker 17 this came out. So down here in the old days, they would be like, well, I've got this solution. So this is the file. We'll call this the old one in the OLD, right? And then they'd have the new FileMaker UI file because they're doing all the work. The whole hypothesis of this strategy is based upon the idea that, so this is the old file, this is the new file. There's no data in here. There's no data in here. The data's in here. So if I take this file off the server, throw it away, put this new file in, all right, it pulls the data out of here, but you've changed the code, you changed the calculation, changed the way the layouts work, fixed the bugs wherever you did. So that's how you update it, and you're only moving a 20 or 30 megabyte file. The problem is that I almost never have an upgrade that is that simple. Almost never. It's a hypothetical kind of idea that almost never happens, because what happens is I have an old file over here, I got a new file over here, and then along the way, what happens is that someone in the marketing department goes, well, we really need to track this other stuff. So what you end up with is a old data file and a new data file. And so instead of having a single upgrade, you've got to upgrade two sets of files the old-fashioned way, the painful way. So I think the issue is one where, and I say this very comfortably, people who do this, either you love it or hate it. It's absolutely a religion. Without me looking, I can see Discord flashing over here. Ruben's probably losing his shit. That's how this is in the FileMaker community. I'm almost afraid to look at Discord over here, because what happens is people get really offended about this. They don't care that I said SQL sucked or something, but you say this sucks, I don't know what it is, they their minds. And so I'm only making a logical case for why I dislike it, right? I can't ever get the benefit of what I want. And now with the advent of FileMaker 17, this upgrade where you have this kind of scenario here, right? You have the old two files that are running. You take this file off you shut it down, the server. You move this file off. You put this file on. You restart the server. I've never actually had that work for me. If it works for you, you are, I think, an outlier. And congratulations on finding a good job that doesn't torture you. I think that's pretty rare. So that's why I say have a single file and then run the data migration tool to do the upgrade at high speed. So you have the old file, the new file, the data migration tool. So instead of having two old and two new, this kind of thing, it makes kind of it's just double the mess, right? So I understand prior to FileMaker 17 that you could have a scenario where this is faster. I didn't hardly ever see it, but it could be faster. Starting with FileMaker 17 with the data migration tool, you cannot make a case for this. You cannot make a case for this. It doesn't exist that I'm aware of. Listen, I'm just telling you my opinion. I'm backstopping it with facts. If you can find an outlier solution where like for example, you go into a job. Mark Johnson's here. Love Mark, great guy, Marine, awesome guy, contributes to the community. I love Mark. Mark decides he's going to retire, gets Canberra to come out of retirement to replace him working on the FileMaker solution. Canberra has to go in there and learn this, not only learn what the solution is doing, but learn kind of the tricks of this data separation model. Canberra's going to hate that. I've had engineers threaten to quit working for me if they had to work on data separation. When you have someone that comes to you and like to take their wings of gold off their chest, say, I'm going to quit being a pilot for the Navy or for the Air Force if you make me do this bombing mission at 25 feet, blindfold, butt naked in the cockpit, okay? Then you as the skipper have to decide if you're going to send that guy on a one-time suicide mission, then he quits, okay? Or are you going to just not do that anymore? Butt naked, 25-foot attack profiles in the jet, right? So you have to make that decision, right? So I've had engineers threaten to quit over that, right? They really hated it. Some that didn't threaten over it, but you could tell that they were very unhappy. You don't want unhappy staff. right? So that's one of those things. So, but if you're from a big data system, FileMaker's flexible. You can do it this way. There's no reason you cannot build it the way you want. It's up to you. Build it the way you want. I'm just telling you logically, if you're a new person and you're looking for guidance and advice, I would do it that way.
Someone would
Right, go
like
ahead.
to know what the max size of an FM file is. Like, how fat can a FileMaker file before it stops working?
I routinely have files that are 20 to 50 gigabytes in size, with 80 million records. I routinely see that. That is not unusual. I see a lot 10 gigabyte FileMaker files with several million records. Like if I go into this one system over here, this has 77,000 records, which is no big deal. FileMaker 3 probably could have done this. But if I go, but down here are the notes, right? And every time we have interaction with a note, it creates a record. So if I go File, Manage Database, this came, by the way, you can see this kind of, there's one is trying to open these files implicitly and I don't want it to open them, right? So I get those dialogues. I got to fix that. That's so obnoxious, right? So listen, if I tell you that not to do it because I suffer through, it's because I personally suffer through. I'm not making this up to make me feel good. I'm telling you, my life, when I run into stuff, it sucks. I make a note and I pass it on to you what to avoid. If I go to tables right here, it doesn't put any commas in this, but you look through here. Oh, it does now. Oh, this is new. It didn't used to do this. See this log? 2.1 million records in the log file. 12.1 million records in the notes file. Wow. I did not know it was that big.
That's really fat.
Those commas are new. I don't think that was in FileMaker 19.3 or 19.2. Somewhere in 19.4, 19.5, they put commas in here so we could see, because it's really hard to read 12 bazillion, 55 zillion records, right? So that's how big this one is. We use this all day, every day. On a wide area network, we're 30 people. I could have 100 people work for me if I had that much work. The system would work just fine. I just buy a bigger server on Amazon to handle the load. So yeah, so I would say 10 to 50 gigabytes is pretty common. 80 gigabytes I've seen, and many, like 100 million records is not. I don't have that, but that's not uncommon. This doesn't even stress it. Doesn't even stress it. Right? I'm going to randomly flip to someone's record over here. I probably shouldn't do that. Let me just randomly flip to a record over here. Put that up there. I'm going to flip down here. I'm going to randomly flip to a record. And boom. Oh, there you see the person's name.
I saw like the name flash. It was instantaneous.
Yeah, what's there? And then there's another one there, and there's another one there. So what you have is that, see how fast this is coming back? This is over a wide area network on a server on Amazon. I put it there, bam. Put it there, bam. That's pretty damn quick. And when it's in that delay, it's also bringing back and showing you all the related data over here, right? It's showing you all the related data over here. It shows you the real information and shows you all the related data, hundreds of note records or whatever it is. So capacity-wise, I don't think you're going to have an issue. Ruben, you need double user management with the two files, right? You just don't manage it in one place. Even if you use Active Directory or Azure or some sort of single sign-on, you still have to put the privilege sets in both files. You have privilege sets in both files. So it's anytime you add more files, your workload is going to go up quite a bit. Say I have a solution like my CRM, and I have this notes file. And say my notes file is 200 million records or something like that. And it's just like an ungodly amount of data. I would probably create two files in that situation. I would take the one giant boat anchor pile of data and put it in a table in a file separately. That way, in the event of an in-flight emergency, I can eject that file. It'll throw a dialog and I'll say cancel, or I can just blow the data out. But if you've got 100 gigabytes of data and then your main database is 100 megabytes, having this in one file so you can kind of manage that separately it could be useful. Okay, so I'm not going to say never do it. I'm just saying you need to have a logical reason. If you have one table that's really fat, several hundred million records or a million records or like 100 million records, and that's many gigabytes, like almost a terabyte of data or some crazy thing like that. Yeah, definitely put it in some file and get it away from your main file, right? And then could relationally connect to it. I'm okay with that. Hell, you could put those files on different servers, right? It doesn't mean you're not going to get a dialogue. So this is the notes file on the server, right? Say this is the notes file over here. Call it notes. It's over here running, and it's like really big. And so you have them together on the same server. You have to restore, but this file has the essential customer data, and this has some notes that maybe or maybe you could live without. Who knows? But you can handle them separately, right? Like this has to be up to date, but this one here, if it's from a week ago, maybe no one cares, right? Put them on different servers, right? This file's running, this file crashes. It's whatever, you run out of room on your hard drive, okay? Well, this file here, it'll open, it'll say, hey, where's the notes file? I say, I don't know, cancel. You can still use it minus that notes functionality. It'll still run. It just is going to throw an obnoxious dialogue saying, hey, where's this other file? But it's still kind of going, right? That's just another thing you can do. With FileMaker, you can solve every problem 10 different ways. You can solve every problem 10, which is why it's so awesome, which drives me nuts when some people do stupid stuff with a platform, especially if they're in charge, right? But it's so flexible. It's why I am still here. It's why the developers are still here. It's so universally flexible and awesome that it really compensates for all the dumb things that happen around the FileMaker community, right?
We have a very long question from Longy. So
I'm not going to cover it right now. We're 8 minutes past.
I know. I'm just saying that I'm going to save it for tomorrow. He said.
Perfect. We'll pick it up tomorrow then. Another action-packed day of unknown surprises wait for you tomorrow. I'll catch everyone tomorrow, 1 o'clock, fmtraining.tv.